name is Claude Goddard. I'm a professional engineer, and I've been involved in the electricity energy production and the mining industry for the last 20 years. Today, my best interest is to be with you to show you many things I have learned about creation. And today, my interest is to present to you the Apemen and missing links. What's all this about? Genesis 1:26 and 27 tell us that then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion. In the image of God he created him, male and female created them." This is quite important because in nature we can see every single species being male and female. Even the trees, the plants are female or male. But how come? In evolutionist thinking, this shouldn't happen. It's just a paradox. It shouldn't happen because we should have only one single sex or simply not non-sex. And this just doesn't happen. We have male and female, as the Bible says. Evolutionist thinking is something very hard. We have to know that many scientists are deeply involved with the dogma of evolution. Once the paradigm of evolution is accepted in their brains, in their hearts, all evidence will be interpreted under that dogma. And the dogma just becomes their religion, their sort of group of beliefs. Then they try to find an ape fossil looking almost human, and that's the aim of many scientists, to prove their case. Millions of years is a source they will use later, the oil they will use later, to try to explain anything and everything. There's a paleontologist called Milford Wolpoff, and he says, in my view, objectivity does not exist in science. Even in the act of gathering data, decisions about what data to record and what to ignore reflect the framework of the scientist. Dr. John Gribben and Dr. Jeremy Cherfas wrote a book called The First Chimpanzee. They're evolutionists, and they write there that we must admit that the history of paleontology does not read as a shining example of the pursuit of truth, especially when it was the truth of man's origin that was at issue. They say later in their book, "We do not know that the popular image of the scientist as a dispassionate seeker after the truth could not be further from reality." They're just not looking for the truth. They're just looking to adjust their beliefs, their thoughts, into the evidence. That is the case. The universal flood is extremely important and relevant for a Christian faith. Should the Bible be true, which I believe is true, there's no time to claim any evolution. Only 6,000 years passed since creation and Adam and Eve, and 4,500 years since the universal flood. But millions are essential for any evolution to look even possible. The fact is that 1 trillion fossils are buried over there, including animals, plants, marine creatures, and eventually humans. But what we can see, if the flood it was not a real event, all the fossils which are buried would be result of death, suffering, and disease before. It's very important, before Adam and Eve. So nature was not that very good, as the Bible says. So sin, or the fall, is not responsible for the death of these fossils buried under our feet, supposedly due to universal flood. And this will validate all the millions of years, if that wasn't the case, would validate the millions of years that the evolution claims. Now, if evolution teaches us that death is the end result of the fight for life, the survival of the fittest for millions of years, then death is not the end result of sin. of Adam and Eve in Eden, the disobedience of them. So sin does not exist, and we are not guilty. If we're not guilty, why we need a savior for? And if we don't need a savior, then what's the sacrifice of Christ required for? Without Christ, religion does make not any sense. And the foundation of our faith, Jesus Christ, is just destroyed. Typical museum progression will show us a lot of animals there, and then humans, these people. Let me tell you, all them probably are real. I'm not saying they're not real, but they were all living at the same time. So there's not a progression in millions of years. This picture here shows, of course, a lot of artistic imagination. It's not true. Simply, it just gives the idea that things happen that way, but it just doesn't make sense. Let me tell you one thing is very important. There is not known law of physics or biology that can create information from nothing. This is normally put by the evolutionists like the tree of life, and mainly for this species. And they say that we are part of it. How come? We come from a common trunk, and then there was a diversion of different animals, which are of course apes, and we are sort of the last, the most perfect, the best of all apes, but we're still apes. And from here to here, they claim that it's 6 million years. Well, let's see a little bit into this. There is no ascending road like this, like they show this picture, ascending road to get to be a human, from a monkey to a human, because we have a thing called genetic entropy. Genetic entropy tells us clearly that all things turn to lost information. All human life or all life tend to be degraded. There's a very important geneticist called Dr. John Sanford talking about genetic entropy. And he says that the problem of genetic entropy is powerful evidence that life and mankind must be young. Genomes, which is all the DNA we have, are all degenerating. Human genome cannot possibly have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, let alone millions of years. Evolution claims that it took 6 million years from separation from apes to become a human. Genetic entropy is probably also the fundamental underlying mechanism explaining the extinction process. Extinctions in the past and in the present can be best understood, not in terms of evolution and environmental change, but in terms of mutation accumulation. What is this? Mutation accumulation. We, during our life, accumulate a number of mutations, which are errors in the copy of our DNA. So we carry that into the next generation. We accumulate about from 100 to 300 permanent mutations in our DNA that we transfer into our children, into our offspring. And them, at the same time, will take their own into their own child. So, the accumulation of this is taking humanity to extinction. It's just simple as that. And this is simply consistent with a miraculous beginning of humankind, and of course with a young Earth. And this perishing world that we're living has been proven using numeric simulation. In fact, they use a genetic computer program model which anticipates that the humankind can only have 268 generations until extinction. That means that the Hebrew 1:11 makes a lot of sense. when tell us that the world will wear out like a garment. And that is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. What Dr. John Sanford tells us, that the world, because of the genetic entropy, will tend to disappear. The humankind will tend to disappear. Animals tend to disappear. And probably most or many of the extinctions we know of species that have been extinct are due to this mutation and genetic accumulation of eras. You may ask, in spite of genetic entropy, why humanity today is living longer. Well, the increased lifespan of industrialized countries today is due to such things as clean water, modern agriculture, and transportation, making cheap food with great variety available reliably all around the world. And of course, modern medicine, which reduced the infant mortality rate from very high rates to today's rates. Australia got 4.61 deaths over 1,000 births, and Angola today has got 176 birth deaths over 1,000 live births. Let's go into some basic principles of life. There are hundreds of amino acids in nature, but only 20 are good for life forming, and they must be left-handed. This is right-handed, and left-handed. So all those which produce life has to be left-handed. Okay? And only 20 of those hundreds which exist in nature are good for producing life. And a chain must happen of amino acids to form a protein, like that. Okay, let's go just a very basic. How do you build a protein? A biologic construction. One protein, this is a protein, requires at least 500 amino acids. But they have to be in the right sequence, exactly in one sequence. And they have to be left-handed, as I said, and they have to have peptide bonds, the right links. And the possibility that this could happen just by chance is 1 divided by 10 to the power of 950. So it's 1 on top of all those 1 with zeros, which is absolutely 0. No possibility that one protein will form by itself. The simplest cell require at least a minimum of 387 proteins and 43 RNA coding genes to produce one cell. And they have to do their own energy, reproduction, repair, and cleaning. And there's one extra problem. If you have all the chemicals together, you still need life. And we know who is the life giver. The problem just here is that even that we have all the chemicals together, not one scientist has been able to produce life today. All the experiments that we can hear of, they're just life transforming into another type of life, but they're just life beforehand. This cell, which is the smallest, is called Mycoplasma genitalium parasitarium. Now, let's carry on. Now, say we have a cell today. So to build up complexity, you need information. Information is the clue here. So there's not created via mutations. Mutations is not a way to create information, just to create chaos. So, say we have already a living cell, but we require a lot of amount of information to generate new 3,000 million pair bases to make a human. What is that? That's DNA. DNA carries those letters. Those are letters. Okay? And we need 3 million pair bases of those to carry the task of building a human. That is, we have a cell, and a cell has 500 pair bases because it's very basic, but to get to a human, we need 3 billion or 3,000 million pair bases to get that human. What's that? It's just all the formulas, all the information required to generate eyes, nerves, skin, bones, muscles, blood, liver, kidneys, hearts. You tell it, whatever. It's all there. It has to be there to put it all together and to work together, which is a different problem altogether. And each cell will be specialized just in one role, leaving others to do other roles. So they have to have a full coordination within them. It's just impossible this to happen without a mind to organize each function within the body. Okay. Here we have the chromosomes of a human being. This carries 23 chromosomes with each of them having two books with information, one coming from dad and one coming from mom. These two books combine to each other to produce the offsprings. But we have the 23rd chromosome, which is the sex. This determines the sex. It's very important to tell you this. XY means a male. But the Y is only carried by men. Okay? X would be a woman. So they carry double X, we carry XY. So Y is exclusive to men. So this is quite important because in another program I could show you that the Y chromosome is carried from our parents, our father and our grandfather, and we can come to Noah, and we can come clearly to Adam. And we can show that we come just in one line, and that chromosome Y has changed very little during all the time. The same, mothers have another privilege. They carry what it's called the mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA, it's transferred from mother to son or daughter only by the mother. And mitochondrial DNA changes very little. I told you that our nuclear DNA could change 100 to 300 errors per generation. In this case, mitochondrial DNA will change less than 1 per generation. So it's been carried very, very clear during all generations. The good thing is that we can identify through mitochondrial DNA that we come from one single mother. That is Eve, of course. Scientists called that Eve a monkey that lived 200,000 years in Africa. But it's not a very firm case today. These are others, the number of chromosomes that other species have, like the frogs, they have 26, cats 38, bats 44, humans 46 is 23 pairs, and chimpanzees 48, amoebas 50, dogs 78, and chicken 78. But also some vegetables like potatoes got 90, or the fern 480. So they're all sort of different. Now, let's carry on this idea. All devices, electronic devices, carry normally the same components, what it is. Transistors, resistors, capacitors, transformers, circuit boards, wires, and they have different functions, but they carry the same elements. They just wire differently, and they relate to each other differently. In the case, but they have one thing in common. They have a common designer of all these devices. Human genome, which is the DNA we carry in ourselves. In 2002, was said that human and chimpanzees share 98% of the genome was equal, similar. And this determination was done through a system called reassociation kinetic methods. It's very important because it was a very basic system to make up all this genome of human beings and monkeys. Today, we are much more accurate in doing this, and specialists, of course, they say that today is more close to 81% humans and monkeys. Okay? And to be specific, are chimpanzees. That's the closest. But 81% doesn't tell a lot. Similarities that they have, of course, we can say they have the same designer. They have similar components. They have ATP centers in their bodies. They have bones, muscles, organs, enzymes, a lot of things in common. They have nose, eyes, ears. They have a head. They have arms. They have a lot of things which are similar. But doesn't mean that one came from the other. It just means that they have a common designer. The big difference, of course, is that humans are able to talk, to make plans, to have a conscience, to have principles, to know good and evil, to have kindness, and put themselves in others' shoes. Animals just cannot. Banana and man, in fact, we share more than 50% of our genome, but we're not half bananas. Okay? We would be not able to eat if each animal and plant of Earth would be totally different from us biochemically, because we need to be similar biochemically to be able to eat them. I'm not talking about eating animals, I'm talking about eating veggies, a banana, a lettuce, whatever. They need to be similar to us, so would be good as food. If not, just will be no food available. Would be like eating rocks or sand. So, in the DNA, is there a big difference between different races? Here we have a Caucasoid, which are white people, and Negroid. The difference among them is 0.012%. We only are one race, just the one race. There's no difference among human beings. And between two human beings, because we're different, we have different face, different size, different aspect, we have 0.2% of difference in the DNA. So among races, it's almost nothing. We have more difference between each one of us. This is quite relevant. You know, an Asian person, an Aborigine, an Indian person, or a black, or a Eskimo, or a Islander, or a Caucasian have only 0.012% difference in their DNA. That talks very loudly that we come from just one origin. This is the comparison of the genomes of humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutan. These are humans. You can see the chromosomes, and you can see that we have, some of them are similar in all of them. Here, this one. But the others are different. Human is exclusive, are totally different to the others, but the others are similar with among them. And the other are similar with some of them, but not with all, and so on. So yes, we have similarities, but definitely we have very deep differences. A very late study from 2010 on chromosome Y in human and chimps gave a very surprising result. They compare the chromosome Y, as I said, in chimpanzees and humans, and researchers found that they were remarkably different. Their findings do not fit well with the statement that humans and chimps are 98% similar, nor that they share a same or a common ancestor. Under evolutionary assumptions, a long and gradual genetic change on that conditions, the Y chromosome structures, layout, genes should be much the same in both species. So the difference in MSY gene, which is a male-specific region of the Y chromosome, in the chimpanzee and humans are more comparable to the difference in a chicken and human, and not chimpanzee and human. Furthermore, The second report, which was published in the Creation magazine very recently, shows that researchers were unprepared for what they would find when they recently compared sequencing of chimpanzee Y chromosome and compare it to human Y chromosome. They say the Y chromosome is full of surprises and was horrendously different from each other. And they say horrendously because they believe in evolution. And this comes like a cold shower to them. And also more than 30% of the chimp Y chromosome lacks of an alignable counterpart in the human Y chromosome and vice versa. So the relationship between the human and chimp Y chromosome has been blown to pieces. This is very relevant because that's the one thing that should be very similar should they come from the same line, from the same descendant. But it's not the case. They're so different. And remember, this is the one that does not mutate a lot. So it should have been very, very similar. And they're just completely different. It's more close to a chicken than to a monkey. Okay? We have had in the last 2-3 months many programs on our local TV, Australian TV. One was from the ABC showing the origin of us with Dr. Alice Roberts. Of course, it's an evolutionist. And they say that this series will explore the powerful and surprising anatomical changes that have given us and our ancestors, of course monkeys, the age of the survived over 6 million years evolutionary journey. Alice Roberts reveals that the advantages of our skeleton has brought us as we learn to walk on 2 feet from hunting to tool use. Of course, it's all the view of evolution. Also another program of an SBS called Becoming Human. And this program is only evolutionary imagination. One of the things they said is this, and I want to quote it because it's very relevant. They said that adaptation, which is there, of course, the SBS evolutionist version, say adaptation, large and small, are occurring at a regular rate in all species and demonstrate how evolution by natural selection works. They're just trying to mix 2 ideas, evolution and adaptation. Adaptation is not evolution. Adaptation is just a natural thing that we believe in, creationists, and we have no problem with it. I will explain later. And the changing shape and strength of the beaks of finches in Galapagos and the moth wings in England as the Industrial Revolution took hold is their demonstration. Those are very old arguments. Already nobody uses those because that's absolutely wrong. But they're still there in that program, showing us current truth. Adaptation is so different to evolution that I want to make clear this. Adaptation, which is also called microevolution, wrongly called microevolution, do happen in nature. Adaptation means little changes in color, height, or the fur of animals. This is quite acceptable as part of creation because in the DNA is all inbuilt. All this information is inbuilt and will just come to fruition in certain cases and others just not. The problem is that from these little changes, which are called, again, adaptation, the evolutionists extrapolate and make us think that from that little changes you can also think of big changes, which is the formation of new species. Does not happen. It's totally wrong. They just extrapolate, saying that fossils, for instance, from fish, they came to be amphibians. And then the reptiles turn into mammals. And the dinosaurs turn to be birds. Or even apes turn to be men. Which is, of course, the idea of evolution. But this is just not true. The DNA does not allow that. DNA only allow little changes within certain limits, and that's all. Let's move on a little bit. Noah had 3 sons, and the Genesis 9:19 tells us these 3 were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. These are Noah and his wife, and his 3 sons, and then all the descendants. But they took about 100 years to get to this situation of Tower of Babel, where God confused their languages, and they had to be separated by their parental groups of families, and with a different language. That's why all the features, different features of each one of those groups, because we're small groups, were shown as races. This is the case. I have a different program to show all about races, but let's move on. From there, from Babel, there was all the immigration started, and they moved to Europe. The sons of the descendants of Noah moved to Europe, to Asia, to Africa, and to all the Asian countries and Southeastern Asia. And there's an important thing here, which is called the mitochondrial DNA and chromosome Y. And just explain that those 2 features don't change, or change very little. And that very little has been the instrument for geneticists to follow up where those migrations were to. So from Babel, they were clear that they moved to Asia, to Europe, and what people today is living here and there and there and there and in all America, because of their mitochondrial DNA, can be clearly determined where they come from. In fact, this is more than just science. It's a business. Today there's one company offering, with your sample of DNA, and mitochondrial DNA, of course, will tell you all your grandparents will tell you where you're coming from, what sort of race you belong to. They will determine a lot of things. Why? Because of mitochondrial DNA and chromosome Y. This is the evolutionist version. It's very close, not exactly the same, but it's very close. They say that the people, the first sort of descendants from men, came from Africa. And from then they moved to Europe, to Asia, to Australia, and of course to America, all America. But the important thing that point there is very close to Babel, which is right there. And they know that there exist 3 different mitochondrial DNA, that is called M, N, and R, variances of mitochondrial DNA. The important thing is that how many daughters did Noah had? None. But he had 3 sons, which had their own wives. So there were 3 women which reproduced themselves and gave birth to a new generation. And those 3 women carry their own mitochondrial DNA. So that's why we have 3 mitochondrial DNA that were clearly identified. M, N, and R. That is right there. After Babel, there was a dispersion where all men, because of their new languages, had to move somewhere else, and they started moving in all Europe, Asia, and Africa. That was the year 2250 before Christ. The first evidence we have from burials is that a lot of men were in the area of Africa and the Middle East, and those burials are shown to be Homo erectus. All those people just dispersed and lived in the areas extending to Europe, West Asia, Africa, Middle East, and East Asia, until approximately in the year 2000 before Christ, where it's Abraham's time. By then, we had also other sort of humans, which were called Neanderthals, and also another called Denisovans, and of course the modern Homo sapiens. But they're all cousins, they're all just humans. They look a little bit different, as I will show later, but they're just all part of the human family. This has all happened during the time of what's called the Pleistocene, and the Pleistocene coincides with the Ice Age. And of course, all this, what I've just said, coincides and fits perfectly with the Bible story. And this probably will show us, again, 2,250 Babel. So they have found burials of people in the vicinity of Babel and some in Africa at that time, just all, because that's in the lower part of the Pleistocene layers. These are not fossils, these are just burials. And later on, in the middle Pleistocene layers, they found about 2,100 the same Homo erectus in different places. So they move, they migrate to Europe, the southern part of Africa, and Asia. Later on, in the upper part of the Pleistocene layers, the same Homo erectus were all around, but also it's found some other people which are called modern Homo sapiens, like that. These are just different humans. They're not, I will explain a little bit later. And after that, after the year 2000, which is the time of Abraham, it came, most of them, all the burials now are belonging to Homo sapiens, the same as in America. America is all populated by Homo sapiens. They're all descendants from Noah. There's no mystery here. It's just that. Now, let's go to the fossils that have been claimed to be pre-humans. The aim of the scientists, of course, is to find ape fossils looking almost human, so they would prove their case. And they have claimed one called the Ramapithecus, the Australopithecus, the Australopithecus Florensis, and Homo habilis. All have been claimed to be humans, or past human, or part humans and part monkeys, but they were not. All of them today are clearly shown or clearly determined to be just apes. I will show examples. This is a group of three here, which are the man of Java, man of Nebraska, and man of Pildan, which I will explain. And lastly, the Homo erectus, which are human, Homo florensis, Neanderthal Man, and Cro-Magnon Man, which are real men. First, let's start with the Australopithecus africanus. The town boy, this is the one. What they found was just a little bit of a face, like that. All the rest is just plastic. Okay, it was found in 1924 in town in South Africa. And they discovered that they had a brain of about 410 cubic centimeters. And that the interpretation that this person, Raymond Dart, gave to it probably was rejected by the scientific community, because this definitely was an ape. So it's gone. Second one I want to show you is the Australopithecus afarensis, called Lucy, because of the song of the Beatles. So from studies of Lucy, this has been very, very much thoroughly studied. We know that the features do not match with an intermediary Apemen, because a lot of what they have shown is just imagination made in plaster, in plastic. Lucy did not walk upright, and the fingers of Lucy were curved like that, because they need for hanging on the trees, apes. And the wrist, they had a mechanism to lock when they're knuckle walking, so they lock their wrists. And also, the orientation of the organ of balance they have in the inner ear was scanned, and there's evidence that they could not walk upright. And the brain, of course, was the size as any other ape. This is Lucy. These are the real bones that were found, you see, and all the case was built. And this is with some plastic. And the last one I want to show you is the Toumai. This is the latest. You can see the prominent eyebrows and no forehead. Was discovered in 2001 in Chad. And it was claimed to be 6 to 7 million years old. Have a very small brain, between 320 and 380 cc's, and comparable to any other chimp. And the opening of the column in the back suggesting was an ape walking like that. All right, the point here is that they have different opinions, but Brigitte Sennett suggests it is a gorilla. And all coincide, this is a major finding, but still an ape, nothing else. Let me tell you that all these probably are extinct, okay? They're not normal today monkeys. They're very different, they're extinct, but they're not human. That's an important point. The Australopithecus robustus and Bussei are here. They're real pictures of the real thing, but you can see they look very monkey-like. The proconsul africanus, this one, it's there, and you can see how much close it looks to current chimpanzees. Here in Melbourne, in our museum of natural history, there is a evolution gallery, and there you can see all the skulls of these fossils. First, on top of the Homo sapiens, which is a real human, then an Homo neanderthalis, which is also human, and the Homo erectus, as I said, also humans. But then on, we start with apes, which are the Homo habilis, the Australopithecus afarensis, and Australopithecus africanus. All of these are just apes. The point is that they put it all together, showing it as a sequence, which is not true. It's just that three on top are men, humans, and the three at the bottom are just apes. Differences. Rib cage. Apes have a rib cage in a conical shape. Humans, we have in a circular barrel-like shape. They're different. Hips are totally different. These are a human chip to walk upright, and this is an ape that is built to walk knuckle walking, in four legs. Also the pelvis is totally different. This is a chimp, this is a human. And to walk upright, the bipedalism marks a very critical divergence between humans and apes. In fact, human walking on two legs use only 1/4 of the energy required by a chimpanzee that have to walk knuckle walking in 4 legs. Here we can check the difference in bones between humans, men, and others like gorilla. You can see here the length of the arms, and the shape, the position, all the position of their hips, and how different they are. Brain size. This is also very relevant. Brain size are totally different between humans and apes. Humans used to have about 1,000 or 1,600 cc's, cubic centimeters. Today, humans are more in the mark of 1,400 cc's. But apes have only between 400 to maximum 700 cc's in their brains. So their brains are much smaller. In fact, the size of the brain has been varying in different humans. We have the fact that women have a smaller brain, but they're intelligent as men. There's no difference there. Ancient humans used to have an average of 1,500 cc's. And Marvin Lubenow said in 1992 that the inferior limit for humans was about 700 cc's, because they're midgets, they're people that are very small, and that determines the size of the brain as well. But today, the latest is that humans have only 1,359 cc's, which means that human brains are shrinking and not growing as predicted by evolution. I remember seeing this sort of illustration of people that would have big brains in the future. It's happening exactly the opposite because of genetic entropy, because we are losing our capacities. Again, in the Becoming Human, in the SBS, they gave a very impressive statement. And I want to share this with you because I think this is the reason why apes turn into human. And these are the reasons they have. I'm going to quote it. Today, many think of abrupt climate change as the biggest threat to humanity's future. But this theory suggests that such sudden flips may have been an essential creative engine that helped shape the emergence of our ancestors. Based on new discoveries about ancient climate extremes, paleoanthropologist Rick Potts have formulated a new grand theory, saying variability of climate itself was the driving force of human evolution, and our ancestors were adapted to change itself. Mental capacity suddenly took off from apes and transformed in humans like apes. So that's the reason they try to sell us that the apes turn into humans because of climate changes, because these extreme differences in climate, and they sort of adapt and they convert into humans or into semi-humans. Let's continue. Okay, let's now review the humans, real humans, in the fossils or the burials we can find. Homo erectus is the first one, and Homo erectus means upright man. All fossils include this belongs to human race. The Peking man, the Turkana boy, and many others which have been found. And all they have the brain capacity of about 900 to 1,100 cc's. Evolutionists acknowledge that the postcranial skeleton of erectus was essentially human. But the thickness of the skull probably made a difference because it was a little bit thicker. But that was all. In this case, Homo erectus Turkana boy, this is the Turkana boy, was found in 1984 in Lake Turkana in Kenya, and it's a boy of 168 meters tall, and he probably was very young, about 11 years old, and was estimated to be the oldest human fossil ever discovered. Homo florensis, a Hobbit, was found in Indonesia. It's a very small human being, like a pygmy, like those. And they have what is called microcephaly. It was found in the island of Flores, there in Indonesia. And they're quite similar to pygmies in Africa, Australia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, PNG, and Brazil. Pygmies, are humans. They're just very small. They have small brains, but they're still humans. The Neanderthal man, this is a very special case, which I would like to cover more extensively. The first fossil of a Neanderthal man was discovered in 1856 in the Neanderthal Tallis Valley in Germany. And they have the morphology of a human, but there's evidence that they were sick of arthritis, rickets, and syphilis. And they probably lived during the Ice Age. All the Pleistocene I showed before is the Ice Age. After the flood, we had about 500 years of Ice Age. Okay? And these people had to live there in those conditions. So Neanderthals, this is how the illustration they showed during that time, in the early 19th century. They used jewelry, they used musical instruments, did cave paintings, they were capable of speech, and bury their dead, which is quite important. This is a Neanderthal in the Grotte of Clamuse in France, and there has been comparisons of mitochondrial DNA of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, current Homo sapiens. In fact, 1,669 modern humans were compared with the DNA and mitochondrial DNA extracted from these bodies. And the difference were about 22 differences between humans, modern humans and Neanderthals. But among different humans and humans, we have up to 24. So that is to say that the difference is negligible. It's not important. They're just human. So last DNA technology has shown that Neanderthals are 99.7 identical to modern humans. And the other sort of difference they could have makes really not an important argument. Neanderthals are simply fully human and should be classified as Homo sapiens. This is a report I put there, the reference. This is the first model published by the National Geographic of a Neanderthal from the DNA evidence they had that this is a woman, she had pale skin and possible freckles because they determined that within their chromosome they had a variant that exactly gets people to have that kind of features. Some forensic information with forensic computers, they took the skulls and they could rebuild how the face would look. And here we have reconstructions of a boy and some adults, another adult. So one thing which I said was very relevant, and the majority of anthropologists recognize that burial is a human activity and a religious act. And Neanderthals did bury their dead. The strongest evidence that Neanderthals were 100% humans, that in 4 sites, humans and Neanderthals are buried together. These are the sites where they've been discovered. And final conclusions, they have protruding, broad ridge. They have stocky build, body build and short extremities. They were isolated as a population of people because of the Ice Age. They live in cold, harsh climate, and they are 100% human. I try to reinforce this idea because for a long time Neanderthals were considered a semi-human, but today it's clearly determined that they are 100% Homo sapiens. Next one is the Cro-Magnon Man. That's definitely a Homo sapiens sapiens modern man. It was discovered in 1868 in Cro-Magnon in France, and was estimated by evolutionists to be 30,000 years old. They definitely constructed baked potteries. They use tools made of bones. They have also musical instruments. They wore jewelry, and they built huts, and they painted caves, which are famous because all the paintings they did in Lascaux, Chauvet and Altamira. You can see horses there. You can see rhinos. You can see also lions. And this is very good art, definitely done by man. The Cro-Magnon also carved idols from deer antlers. And they worship all these idols. Firstly, the goddess of Venus, which was the goddess of fertility. The Java man, now, this is other special cases, which are quite important. The Pithecanthropus erectus. Eugene Dubois, in 1892, in the island of Java, he found a thick bone, and he knew that that was from a human, modern human. And earlier, he had found a large skull cap, this one, which was probably from an Homo erectus. But what he did, he put it both together, and they found sort of 3 teeth as well. And they put it all together, and they announced that he had discovered the missing link, and that this was the indisputable proof of man evolution. This was in the evolutionary book for years and years as a proof of evolution. But later on was discovered that this thick bone belonged to a modern human, and he just put it together, and there was no reason to belong to the same creature. Was definitely a fraud. Then Piltdown Man, also 1908, Charles Dawson and Sir Arthur Smith Woodward claimed that they find a human skull, and they also put together this jaw. Later on, they discovered that this jaw belonged to a modern orangutan. The point is that this proof of evolution was in the record, in the books, for 40 years, featured as a proof of evolution from ape to man, the second fraud. And the third one is Nebraska Man. Nebraska Man was discovered one tooth in 1921 in the Snake Creek. And from that one tooth, they put together this picture. How they did it, I don't know. But of course, was with a lot of prejudice. And later on, another person called Thompson, he visited the same place and find more evidence of more tooth, all of the other three. And the conclusion was that all these tooth belonged to a pig. So they were pig teeth and was a fraud. This is a pig that those teeth belong to. Okay. In 1991, this body was discovered. It's called this Milan Glacier. In this Milan Glacier, it's called Ötzi. This man is a real burial. Was an accident probably. Was discovered in the Alps, as I said, where snow and ice is very harsh during wintertime. And this person was determined to be 3,000 years old, and the level of technology that he used was amazing. In fact, this was he lived during the time of David and Solomon, and it was described by the National Geographic that he was carrying a backpack with frame, a copper axe, dry fruit, instrument to light fire, and the bow was made of the best wood available at that time. So he was a quite technological, advanced person. Today he's in a museum, as you can see there. Psalm 139:14 says, "I will praise you, for I am fearful and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well." I want to cover a couple of things about human design. Humans are so different, are so special, are so different to animals that I just want to show that sort of difference. We have a holistic character, okay, which is by design. We have an exquisite nature with various characteristics, which I will show, and also we have definitely what is called irreducible complexity. Things which are together that cannot come one after the other. They have to be all together to be one working entity. If anything, humans today, we can say they're over-designed. And over-design is evidence of creation, because evolution could produce only what is needed for survival, nothing more. But we are over-designed. Say if we compare our feet with other apes are absolutely different. And the big difference is the length of the fingers. Should humans have the same fingers, they would not be able to run, because an increase in toe length of just 20% of what humans have, we have a double in the peak digital flexor impulses and the mechanical work required. Humans can run. Humans can do exercise, can do dancing, can do a lot of things that animals cannot because of the design of our feet. The masterpiece of engineering and work of art is our feet. That was said by Leonardo da Vinci. It's unique because it allows us to be up straight in an upright position. The knee, the calf, the hip, the back, and the skull joints that are just right for the upright movement. They're just designed for that. All features require simultaneously. This feature cannot be developed one after the other by evolution. They have to be all together at once, that's the irreducible complexity. Human foot also has a unique arc here, giving the ability to push on the front and on the back, stand on the toes, and running and doing sport activities. The hand is unique. We have unique, skillful hands as well. The hands are the most sophisticated device in nature. They're vastly more skillful than ape hands, and fully opposable thumb like that to all other fingers is very important because it allows us to pinch grip and to hold difficult, delicate objects. And a large part of the brain, in fact, is dedicated to control our hands, what's called the motor cortex, have the fine control to perform complex tasks like sewing, art, surgery, sport, musical instrument, even to grasp a ball like that. That's unique to humans. And the list goes on and on. We have unique fine skin. Our skin is totally different to monkeys, to apes. We have a unique language and speech. And let me tell you something. In this language and speech, the brain has got a very particular feature, is that will put gaps when you listen to someone speaking in your language. You will hear gaps between words because the brain will do that. The point is the gaps are not there. The brain puts them there. And it's just a continuous noise of words that you hear, but the brain makes the gaps. So that's in your mother language. But when you're listening to a different language, it's totally different. The brain is not capable of doing that until it's trained. That's why it's so difficult to foreigners to speak a foreign language. Unique marriage and birth. That's of course, it's a religious activity, but it's very important. We have a unique childhood. Our brains builds up, grows until we're 18 years old. In animals, they have only a very short period of less than a year to grow and just to be fully equipped for life. Unique brain, a unique beauty. Human beings are beautiful. Animals are beautiful in their way, but if we compare them, are different. We have a unique genome. Our genome is just ours. And we have a unique spiritual being. To be spiritual, to feel God, is something natural in the human brain, in the human kind, not in animals. So, beauty. This is a human, and that's a chimp. They're so different. If we're looking for transitional fossil or missing links, we have two very important statements from evolutionists. One is from Dr. Colin Patterson, already deceased, a senior paleontologist at the British Museum of Natural History in London, when he was asked why he had no illustration of any evolutionary transitions in his book called Evolution. There's a picture of it. And he said, there is no such fossil, not one fossil that I could show and make a watertight argument. He knew. He didn't have anything to show. And Professor Stephen Gould also passed away some time ago. said that the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persist as a trade secret of paleontology. They just show the reality. There are no missing links. There are no transitional fossils. Just to come to an end, this is an evangelist called Mark Cahill, and he says that the number one answer he gets why there is no God is because of evolution. People go and start believing in evolution or believing all the position of evolution, they just reject God. The point is, the real issue is people that believe in if evolution was true, and they know the Bible would not be true. And then it leads them to the conclusion of atheism. And people just create roadblocks and are not prepared to listen to the gospel. That is why it's so important to put this evolution thing in its position as a belief, to put creation in its position as a revelation of God, that we have enough proof to know that it's true. In closing, ape fossils are mostly extinct, but continue being apes. Descendants from Noah were fully first humans living post-flood, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denovians, and Homo sapiens. Chimpanzees, its genome is only 81% similar to men, to humans, but chromosome Y is very different. All humans descending from one woman because of mitochondrial DNA, and one man because of chromosome Y. Information in the DNA is always lost because of genetic entropy, never incremented by chance. And no time for millions of years of evolution because of genetic entropy. If we have only 264 generations, we have not millions of years available. And weather changes is the best explanation from evolutionists. No reason and no proof of any transitional Apemen ever existed. Psalms 139:14 says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. Thank you.